What is up, Flick fans? Happy New Year! Haven't seen you guys since last year. Jeez, that was awful. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to give you guys my most anticipated movies for 2020. I love doing this list every single year. It's always tough because you focus on the names that you know in the directing space, blockbusters, but by the end of the year, you get all of these movies that you didn't know were coming out. They're the ones that end up in your top 10, so I guarantee my top 10 at the end may look different than this list, but as always, if you guys enjoy this content, if you want more things like it, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, and I will definitely do more. These movies to me are still the most exciting, most intriguing, and the ones that have captured my attention the most. Haven't gotten a trailer for every single one, and once we start getting trailers for these movies on my honorable mentions, they could definitely sneak in, but right now I'm going to give you guys my top 10, but first, some honorable mentions. So my honorable mentions include The Many Saints of Newark, which is supposedly a prequel to The Sopranos, After Yang, which sounds like a cool sci-fi robot movie, Ghostbusters Afterlife, we all know what that is, The Devil All the Time, starring Tom Holland, Bill Skarsgård, Sebastian Stan, Robert Pattinson. I could go on, but this cast is incredible. No Time to Die, of course, the brand new James Bond film. The Gentleman, the brand new movie directed by Guy Ritchie, looks great. In the Heights, another great-looking musical. Cannot wait to see where that goes. Birds of Prey. We all know what this is. Brand new Harley Quinn movie coming from DC. I think this one could surprise a lot of people. It looks good, as well as Free Guy. Guys, this trailer was so surprising. Ryan Reynolds looks hilarious. It could be one of those that ends up on one side of the fence or the other, but if it captures the magic that it looks like it's going to, it could be really good. The Way Back, one of my favorite underrated directors in Gavin O'Connor. This is a sports movie starring Ben Affleck. It sounds awesome. Nightmare Alley. Guys, this movie looks so cool, directed by Guillermo del Toro. The cast is incredible. This could be one that ends up in my top 10 of the year, and I cannot believe I'm not putting this in my top 10 most anticipated. But this is David Fincher's new film in Mank. This is a biopic about the life of Citizen Kane screenwriter Herman Mankiewicz, and it stars Gary Oldman. The only reason it's not in my top 10 is because I don't know how intriguing the story itself is, but it sounds interesting. The stars attached, it looks awesome from that perspective. And David Fincher. I do want to give a special mention to Godzilla taking on King Kong. This is an epic showdown for the ages coming out next year. I wanted it in my top 10, but there's something that is making me just a bit hesitant going into this film. I don't want to feel that way. I do. I really, really hope it surprises and exceeds my expectations. I want this to be good. I think everyone wants this to be good. Please let this movie deliver. And coming in at number 10 is the brand new Wes Anderson film. I've been waiting on another live-action movie of his, and the cast is outstanding. Tilda Swinton, Timothy Chalamet, Frances McDormand, Bill Murray, Owen Wilson, wow, Adrian Brody, Jeffrey Wright, Willem Dafoe. Ridiculous. So ridiculous. It is stacked. But let's look at what this story is. So, a love letter to journalists that is set in an outpost of an American newspaper in post-war 20th century. Sounds very much like a Wes Anderson story. That centers, now here's where we get fancy, on 3 different storylines. This is exactly what I want to see from this guy. I mean, he creates beautiful works of art. His movies are not for everyone, but they always intrigue me. Even if I don't end up loving them, I really enjoy a lot of his films, but even the ones I don't absolutely love and fall for, I'm still intrigued going in, and The French Dispatch, it just sounds like a movie that could appeal to me. Another film that I'm very excited for that may not be a giant blockbuster, but this is Taika Waititi returning to direct a smaller film, exactly what we got from him and Jojo Rabbit, and look how that turned out. This is Next Goal Wins. I'm a sucker for a great sports story. We have The Way Back in my honorable mentions, and now this, both of those could be awesome, but Next Goal Wins. The fact that you're bringing his stylistic sensibilities and his sense of humor, hopefully, to a film that just sounds inspiring. So this is all about Dutch coach Thomas Rongen, who is played by Michael Fassbender, where he attempts the nearly impossible task of turning the American Samoa soccer team from losers into winners. This sounds, like I said, like a very inspiring story, and Michael Fassbender, who hasn't really had a role like this in a couple of years. I'm excited to see him play the lead, Elizabeth Moss, in this film as well. It looks really, really good, and Taika tackling source material that maybe you don't expect from the guy. Sounds extremely intriguing. Speaking of intriguing, the first very notable movie on this list. So there are 2 Pixar films coming out next year. One, it was technically an honorable mention, but I didn't mention it until just now because that is Onward. I'm very much looking forward to Onward. It looks really good, but the trailer that got me even more excited is the trailer for Soul. I watched this and was just captivated with how sweet and wonderful it could end up being. I wasn't overwhelmed by the trailer, but the fact that it reminds me of Inside Out, taking a look at the soul of a human and where that could lead you in the multiple journeys that we're going to take, both, it looks like, in real life and then in this soul-based world. And the animation there was, you could argue that, well, it looks like it's a movie for kids, but the beautiful thing about Pixar is it normally appeals towards adults and children to the same degree, and this film looks no different. Soul is for the soul. Okay. Next up, you guys know me. I love my blockbuster movies. I love my superhero films, and the first one on this list is Black Widow. Black Widow just looks really, really cool, man. The trailer got me more excited for the film than I was. Not that I wasn't excited, but I was like, yeah, Black Widow. We kind of know what happens with her story, but do we really know what happens in this time period? And it looks like this film could be setting up some things for the future of the MCU, not necessarily involving her character, but those surrounding her. I love seeing these supporting performances start playing out in this trailer. David Harbour and Florence Pugh. I cannot wait to see where they go in the MCU, guys. And Black Widow looks way more interesting and intriguing than I thought it was going to. We're transitioning, segueing from Marvel into DC, and this is Wonder Woman 1984. This time we're dealing with the Cold War in the 1980s. It goes from a darker, and don't get me wrong, I love the first Wonder Woman film, but a darker looking and feeling movie into something a bit more stylistic and colorful, and Patty Jenkins doing what Patty Jenkins does, and that's bringing her touch to the movie, but bringing us a very different looking and feeling film, and I love that, man. I love the fact that they're switching things up. I didn't know how excited I was for this movie until I saw the trailer. The trailer worked well for me when she's lassoing the lightning bolt. I'm like, yeah, that could be really cool. I hope this movie works. I hope they explain Chris Pine's character coming back well, and Wonder Woman 1984 looks great. Now, normally the top 5, 6, it's full of blockbusters. It's full of notable IPs and film, things that we hope will be good, right? This one is more of a notable director for me. This is Edgar Wright, and I'm such a huge fan of what he does. His last film, Baby Driver, delivered. Shaun of the Dead, one of my favorite movies of all time. And Last Night in Soho sounds really, really cool. We've been hearing rumors about this movie. What is it actually dealing with? Is this a horror-based film? Does it deal with time travel? There are so many different things that people are talking about, chattering that this movie could be not necessarily a game changer, but something that is very different from Edgar Wright and what his filmography has been so far. I love the cast. Anya Taylor-Joy, Thomasin McKenzie, Matt Smith, a young girl passionate in fashion design, is mysteriously able to enter the 1960s where she encounters her idol, a dazzling wannabe singer, but 1960s London is not what it seems. The time seems to fall apart with shady consequences. Time travel, Edgar Wright, and horror. Now we're back to the movies that everyone knows about, and this is part 2 of A Quiet Place, one of my favorite movies of that year, and the sequel, while at first I'm like, yeah, we're going to do this again. We're going to try to capitalize, and I get it. Made a lot of money. It was a huge success. Can Krasinski do this again, this time only behind the lens? He's not going to be in the film, of course, but I really like everything we've been seeing and hearing from this film so far. So when I'm filming this video, I've only seen the poster and the teaser, and I know the premise, and I know the fact that we have Cillian Murphy and Djimon Hounsou coming and playing supporting players in this movie. Now, when this video drops the day of, the trailer is supposed to come out. So maybe I see the trailer and I move it up or down a couple spots. You guys can check my list out on Letterboxd. But if we can capture the magic of the first Quiet Place and not get too far into sequelitis, then I think this could be an awesome 1-2 punch. Continue the story in a great way. We have our returning cast members, and man, A Quiet Place Part 2 sounds awesome. There's a trailer reaction on my channel today, I hope. Next up is going to be an unconventional choice for my number 3. It's going to be uncommon on a lot of lists, and you may see this and say, well, of course he would say that, but here's why I'm putting Eternals at number 3. because the surprise of Guardians of the Galaxy, the love that I had for that movie that year, and really just how exciting it was to have characters that not everyone knew a lot about. I knew a little bit, but going into that film, I was way more blind than I was going into the other Marvel movies, and then coming out with that level of excitement, I really hope, I have this gut feeling that Eternals could capture that magic, just less from a comedic perspective and more from an epic, Game of Thrones-esque, just giant, world-breaking perspective. I think Eternals could be, if it's handled in the right way, Marvel's next giant epic franchise. I trust Chloe Zhao. She had a wonderful movie in The Rider come out a few years ago. Now, that film was a very low-budgeted, small movie. It all comes down to if she can handle the scope of this project, but I trust her, and I think this cast is magnificent. It's a toss-up, but Eternals could end up being great. Okay, number 1. It's the hardest decision I've ever had to make in my life. It's my 2 favorite directors working right now. I love everything about both of these movies, at least what I've seen so far. We finally got a trailer for Tenet, and you know what? Tenet is my number 2. I'm sorry. It is literally like picking between my children. This is Christopher Nolan being his most Christopher Nolan. He's combining the epic scope we got from The Dark Knight Rises, the inventive nature of Interstellar and Inception, bringing all of those things together, plus time travel is what it looks like, plus a brand new cast for the most part. We have a few returning players here and there, but Robert Pattinson and John David Washington, the leading men in what looks to be an epic, crazy Christopher Nolan project. I am not going to be shocked if this ends up as my number 1 of the year next year. We don't know, but it looks really, really great. I love the trailer. I love everything this stands for and represents, so I hope Tenet ends up in my top 10, as well as Denis Villeneuve's Dune. So this is Denis' adaptation of the science fiction novel in Dune. It's all about the son of a noble family entrusted with the protection of the most valuable asset and most vital element in the galaxy. Star Wars meets Game of Thrones, meets a brand new fantasy epic, meets something that could be a game changer for all of those genres, for the way that we look at a fantasy, science fiction, action, adventure, which looks like to be also veering into the dramatic territory. Guys, I love everything I am seeing and hearing about Dune. Denis Villeneuve. I mean, it's Christopher Nolan and Denis, but if I had to put the slight edge to someone right now, it would be Denis. I love both of these directors, but let's take a look at this cast, right? Timothy Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, Dave Bautista, Stellan Skarsgård, Oscar Isaac, Zendaya, Javier Bardem, Josh Brolin, Jason Momoa. And it's one of those casts that they just kept adding on to it earlier on in the year, and we're like, oh, look, he's in Dune, and she's in Dune. Everyone's in Dune, but I love it because this is an actor's director, but it's also a director that brings in every technical element that you want him to bring in. He's bringing in a crew from production design to cinematography to Hans Zimmer doing the score. I mean, this could be the most epic movie of the year next year. I really hope it is, because Dune is the one. Ever since I first heard about it, I know it's a remake of a film and it's based off of a novel, but if he goes more the novel route, which I think he will, Dune could deliver. I encourage you guys to look up everything about this movie, because what everyone's saying, the cast included, they're all saying, yep, this is going to be something. And I hope people show up at the box office. I really do. So those are my most anticipated movies for 2020. What say you guys? Are there some movies on here that I completely forgot about or overlooked? I am sure that there were films that I left off. I'm going to go, yep, nope, I made a big mistake in doing that. But that's why I have you guys. I appreciate you for everything that you do, for liking this video, for enjoying this content. I'll be back very soon with another list, another review. My first review of 2020 is coming, and it's The Grudge. So get excited. All right, I'll see you guys soon.